You know, is there anything, Case, it took me so long to realize this, anything more powerful than curating a hype tribe of women around you that meet you where you're at?
I think that's a rhetorical question because the answer is definitely no. There is nothing better or more important or more life affirming. And I don't think I realized that until my 40s. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with like who we are and how we know ourselves.
Mm,
And then we get to this place where we start unpacking all of the things that we've like layered on.
mm,
And then the people come, right? And then people come that aren't good people, but like much more quickly. Like you can tell, you can feel the energy, and you know when someone's coming to be there with you, and you know when someone's coming to be there for them.
mm.
And it's very easy to discern kind of who your hype tribe is, I think, at this age. It's much easier. I'm not gonna say it's very easy, it's much easier at this age than it was when I was younger.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend tell me, and I feel like this needs to be on bumper stickers, this needs to be on t-shirts, hats, all of the thing. The prize for aging is wisdom.
This is true. I still feel like a juvenile in my mind a lot of times as I deal with sources of stress, the same kind of tape over and over again still.
Mhm.
But I definitely come to resolution quicker than I used to.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. So, Case, as we're talking about the power of curating your hype tribe, of the awareness to let those that empower you in and roll the window up on the shit of the rest that doesn't. Do you remember? I was thinking about this morning. Do you remember how we came into each other's lives?
Yeah, it was through Jen Fisher, right? And she kept saying, "You need to meet Meg." And I think she kept telling you, "You need to meet Kacy." And that's how it happened. I also think there were a lot of like overlaps in friends too. And that's kind of one of those things. It's my greatest gifts in friendship have been curated for me in a way. I mean,
Mm.
yes, I've had some like weird serendipitous moments where I meet someone at an event, and but usually it is something that I've been thinking about, or I knew about something that they were doing, and then we happen to be in the same room, and it's you can just feel that like they're meant to be your people.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we met through Jen, right? Is that correct?
You are so spot on. And I love when you said, Case, about leaning into that energy and you can feel it who's meant to be your people and to not brush that off. I think a game changer for me, Case, as I got older, is rising up from all of the things and allowing myself to lean into those people like yourself, like Jen, that I feel a connection with, and not having the conversation need to be so scripted on an outcome.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
There's something really special when and it's like this conversation, right? Like that we're coming to. There are so many pods that I do, and I like them both ways, right? That are scripted. Like there's questions that I know I'm gonna get. I know where we're gonna go. And I almost like not knowing where we're gonna go better because there is that like and I say this because I trust you, right? And
Mm.
you trust me.
Hmm.
I don't know that I'd wanna go into a conversation not having any idea where it was gonna go with someone I'd never met before, or I didn't have a relationship with, because then I would be like, "Okay, what's gonna come flying at me? And what's this person's what do they want out of me? Like, where is this going?" But I think when you know your people, you have
Mm.
this trust that even if somewhere in that unscripted dialogue that you have as friends, you F up, because we do. We always you can't have a great friend without annoying each other once in a while, right? It
Mhm.
happens. That you trust that you're just gonna get back. And I think that that's been the greatest piece to me is after a childhood of insecurity and social
Mm.
anxiety, which I still very much have. Um, and fearing not being like someone will like me and then they'll stop liking me and like what's that gonna be like? When you meet your people, you don't worry about that in the same way. There's just kind of a peace and a comfort and like, well, we're just gonna talk about this and we're just gonna do this and it'll all be good as opposed to, God, did I say that thing? Like, is that thing gonna upset her? Like,
Yeah.
should I have done this differently? Like, I don't know. Like, that's such an awful feeling, and it's something that I've lived with forever, but it's peaceful, much more peaceful when I have people that I don't have to worry about that with.
Case, as you were talking, and girl, we are like sharing one mind this morning. I loved when you talked about the gift of trust. And it made me flash to something that it took me a long time that I want you to share with us. Because when we first came into each other's lives, you were going through this journey of beginning to hear yourself, actually
Mm,
hear yourself, and
mhm,
take action on it and trust yourself.
mhm, mhm,
Do you mind sharing with our listeners sort of what, and guys, I'm just going to put a note in here. Case has built this beautiful movement. We're going to link it in the show notes. I want you to check it out called Fuchsia Tent, which Case, I want you to tell us all about it. But before we even get into you building this movement, I want you to share with us what what you had to go through to peel back the layers of it all
mhm,
to
mhm,
uncover that this is what you wanted to do, and then the
mhm.
courage to start to build it and bring it out into the world.
Yeah, well, I think I started life with a lot of that courage. I was really awkward and a total theater nerd, and, and I'm not gonna say I had a Sasha Fierce persona because I don't think any of us can, hold a candle to Beyoncé in this realm, but, like, theater and acting became a way for me to kind of come out of my shell and shed and help me find a voice, and I was very convicted young about, like, I'm not gonna take jobs or do things that don't align with my purpose. I'm an artist, blah, 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 like, whatever. I love that part of me, and that part of me is still there. What happened to her is things didn't go the way she planned, right?
Mm,
Like, she planned to go to Hollywood after, acting school and getting a business degree and being told she was talented and could sing and do all these things, and it wasn't a linear journey for me, and I'm really impatient. Impatience is like my curse, right? Um, and, you know, I ended up and I'm very grateful for, my career in pharma because I met wonderful people and I learned so many skills I never would have learned, and I also learned ways I don't wanna work anymore and things
mm,
like that, but in that environment, being an artist and suddenly being with all these people who, were much more conservative thinking, conservative acting than I was, alcohol really became a crutch for me. And
mhm,
I won't call myself an alcoholic. What I will say is that I abused at that stage of my life to cover my social anxiety. So I had like this period of 20 years where, I don't think I heard, I think I buried that quiet voice that was kicking and screaming that she wanted to do something and she
mm,
wanted out and she wanted a business and she didn't want to be she was telling me you're living someone else's life. Like, yeah, you're making
mm,
money and yeah, you're succeeding and yeah, you have friends and whatever, but you're not living your life. You're living someone else's life. And I kept ignoring her by, plying her with alcohol and buying her fancy clothes and shoes because and handbags, which are my thing, which is, I was drunk on the handbags and then all of a sudden there was this great awakening that is also the hellscape known as perimenopause. That for many of us, 80% of us, is an undeniable force. It
mm,
will shake you, it will change your life. You will go to bed one day and you will feel one way, and then you will wake up, and it's not the day you lose your period, which is what everyone thinks, but you'll wake up and you'll have whatever symptomatology you have. And it is so profoundly disquieting that you get to this place where your body's rejecting the way that you've been eating. Your body's
Mm.
rejecting, for many of us, at least for me, the way that I had been drinking and treating it. My body was rejecting the way that I poured into work to cover stress. It was like, listen to me, listen to me, listen
Yeah.
to me, right? Like, you
Yeah.
have to listen to me. And that started my journey. So I stopped being able to digest food after I miscarried a child because, of course, like many of us, I was like, let me pour myself into work and take a big promotion. It's completely ridiculous. And travel constantly and ignore it and then drink
Mhm.
it away. And then, take Wellbutrin, and which I'm totally fine with, but like all the things to like get myself through the day instead of being like, you need to stop. And then when I couldn't digest, I had to go to a doctor and I had to quit drinking and I had to watch everything I put in my mouth for 2 years to get my health back. And that is when I met me. That is when
Mm.
she came out and said, "Hi, I'm still here. You're still living someone else's life. You thought you got rid of me with handbags and houses and a wonderful partner and all this stuff. I'm still here. Like, I'm knocking. Hear me. I need to come out." And that really started this journey of,
Mm.
I have to listen to what my body is telling me. I have to listen to what my heart is telling me. And I have to have the really tough discussions with my partner to say, I can't live this way anymore. Like,
Mm.
I love you and I choose you and I want you, but I don't choose this life for me anymore. I want this other thing over here and it's not going away. And it was 2 years of kind of hell, Mag, of back and forth. He and I tried to figure out, like, okay, what do we need to do to give you the runway to be able to do this, where we're not trying to like shut it down immediately if it doesn't work. And that's kind of the story. I know that's a long story. Sorry, that's probably more than you bargained for in that
Oh
story,
God,
but
girl, you like summed up my 40 years of life. I gotta tell you, it is so and I never had the language. This is the thing. I never, as you are talking about the numbing with the booze to make yourself more comfortable in situations and not listening to the fact that, girl, this isn't the right room for you. Like, you need to put yourself in another room. But it is so damn difficult to do that, especially when you've been recognized for being a certain way and in a certain lane. And girl, I was numbing with the booze. I was numbing with Lexapro. Again, nothing wrong with a little Lexapro love, but using it to numb, overspending all of the things, this constant exhaustion and resentment and shame. And it resulted at a breakdown at the height of my career, which I told no one. I would love to know, my girl, do you think that you can meet yourself without having the breakdown?
I have met people that have met themselves without the breakdown, but they're few and far between. I'd say
Mhm.
I've probably met 10 people in my life, who just came out knowing who they were. And I think it's interesting for those individuals. Yes, most of them had really healthy upbringings, but
Mm.
but there is that unique person that my partner is kind of like that in a lot of ways, in that he just he knows himself. He's okay with it. He knows what it takes to make him tick. He knows that as long as he can play golf and have a golf course in life, that's really like, and his wife and his dogs, like, that's it. Like, the job is a job and he works his tail off, but it doesn't define him. There
Mm.
isn't, this huge purpose-driven thing. I think for most of us, especially who go on to kind of entrepreneurship or go on to some form of values aligned or mission driven business, there is a breakdown because it's usually that breakdown that becomes our breakthrough. Like, that's how we get from the other side of what we've what we've accepted. I will never say I was sold ability. Like, I lie. I said that not in LinkedIn post. We do get sold narratives and beliefs, but we choose to believe them. And the day I stopped choosing to believe the narratives that belong to other people, that were
Mm.
in my head as my self-talk, was the day I was able to step out into the light. Now, that's not to say those voices are not with me every step of the way and every day. But Alex L said something really brilliant. I had the really good fortune when I was in my previous job to bring her in to do a
Yeah.
journaling session and learn from her. And she said, someone asked her about fear. And she said, I think of my life as driving in a VW bug, which I think everybody can picture, at least everybody of our generation picture
Yeah.
the VW bug, whether you picture it light blue or yellow, you picture it. And she said, she tells her fear it can come along for the ride, but it's not sitting shotgun,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So I love that like thought of these voices, stop trying to stifle them. It's so much energy to stop the noise, right? Like
mm.
it's I'm sure there's ways to do it, and if I devoted my life to stopping the noise in my head, maybe I could, but I'd so much rather just accept that it's there
Yeah.
and do the thing anyway.
Yeah.
I can't fight it anymore.
Yeah. Case, I would love to ask you, what's your advice for the beautiful woman in our tribe that has pulled up a seat to this kitchen table conversation with you and I? And she's like, fuck, man. Like I am numbing. I know I'm meant for more. I'm scared shitless. What do I do? What would your advice be if you could turn back the hands of time and go to the place you were in, I was in? Like, what would you tell her?
Trust your instincts,
Mm,
right? Like listen to that still tiny voice. Like your critics are always louder than that little champion, right? Like the critics are in here screaming at you at the top of their lungs, don't do this, and they're trying to protect you, right? Like we don't have inner critics, I don't believe, that are cruel and to defeat us. I believe their
mm,
voices or beliefs of people that have loved us, that want to see us succeed, that only know in their own way how to see that happen. But there is always that voice, that quiet voice of the champion. And what I would tell her is the more you listen for that voice, the louder it gets.
mm,
So just keep listening to it. And don't let inner limitations, so like I said, my biggest fear, and I'm not afraid of divorce because I have been divorced and whatever, but my biggest fear was that this thing that drove me would take away a partnership that meant so
mm,
much to me. But when I really started having the conversations, not as that scared noise in my head, but as an adult with my partner, we found a way. Yeah, it sucked. It was 2 years of suck sometimes, but there were brilliant moments in between, and we got through it, and here we are. And it's still, marriage is a daily struggle like everything else, right? It's a daily choice. And but it is that inner champion that if we just keep listening, it just gets louder. And
mm.
eventually, even like I see it as like the negative kind of goes up to the nosebleed seats, and then your champions are sitting there with their like signs for you, like we love you, do it, come
You
on,
could
you can
do
do
it.
it.
Case, I love to hear you talk about creating the space to hear yourself. But then the second hardest thing to do, speak it. And as you're talking about your beautiful relationship with your husband and wanting to evolutionize yourself and share it with him, one of the things that I've always struggled with in my marriage, my mother, single mother, married 3 times, never grew up really seeing a solid marriage. And I think you can so quickly become what you've seen and what you've grown up seeing. And
Yeah.
so my thing with Michael, and God, Case, I never even realized this for so long, is that I wouldn't, I would keep so much to myself because I was afraid of rocking the boat because I didn't want him to leave me. And I had all of this fear. And then to your words on hearing yourself, I just had this point, Case, where I could not ignore the little rally cry in the front saying, girl, you got to do this. And it
Mm,
was really hard on Michael and I for a long time because he could
mm,
not see what I could see for this business and this movement, nor should he. It was my baby. But I tell people all the time, if I waited for someone to give me permission, my husband, my girlfriends, if I was just waiting for the world to say, go get it, girl, I'd still be waiting. What does that
Mm.
mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly why I pulled the Band-Aid off on the fuchsia tent before I was ready, right? Like, I knew if I didn't pull it off in that moment on my birthday this year, I never would, right? There's so much I guess where I go with it is once a person with social anxiety disorder, always in a way, and I think people don't understand social anxiety disorder. I think they think that it means that you are shy and timid and, that you hide from people. And I think people think of like that image of someone who's kind of shut in, um, and hoarding. I don't know why, but like that's the image people have. And so they always reject my ownership of my social anxiety disorder. And what it means to me is I live in my head.
Mm,
And so I think when I share my voice, I still have fear every time that people aren't going to like it and that I'll,
mm,
lose followership or I'll lose public in the court of public
yeah,
opinion or I'll say the wrong thing or
yeah.
I'll do the wrong thing and it's exhausting. And I think, you know, it just gets easier and easier. Like
Mm,
it's just something you have to do. You
mm,
have to decide if it's what you want, that it's time and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna live with it and you're not gonna read the mean comments when they come up because they're gonna come up and you're gonna ask yourself when someone gives you feedback whether it is well intended or it is intended to hurt or what their perspective is. And you're going to keep your heart open and you're just going to keep
mm,
going because, I mean, I would be a liar face if I didn't say this was not a daily struggle for me right now, Meg. It is a daily struggle as I put content out for not one, but two companies
yeah.
and try to establish for people my unique value prop, which is confusing because there's two companies, but it's not confusing in my head. It's just confusing, right? And so it is that struggle, but it doesn't stop me. It will not stop me. And it's just getting more and more comfortable with the fact that at some point someone's going to probably say something really horrible and I'm going to ignore it, and like move on. But yeah, that's what I tell them is it's not worth your silence. Your silence
Mm.
is too expensive. Your silence costs all of it costs the world. Um yeah, I don't know why. I do know why women are prone to silence because the systems aren't built for us to talk, right? But um my silence just gotten too expensive. Like the price of keeping
Oh,
quiet is too much.
God, girl, I love that. One of the things, and this has been such a learning lesson for me, girl. I am type A. Give me an agenda, give me a calendar invite. Let me plan out a little smart plan for you. Oh, it gives me chills. And the power in stepping back from that shit to allow for some unscriptedness and to hear yourself and to put it out and the courage to put it out, man, I feel like that is God, universe, divine, kismet, whatever word you want to use, gift back to you when you can hear yourself and you have the courage to listen to the crowd base in the front row, like you were saying, that are rally crying for you, and just do it anyway, even when you don't feel ready. Case, I talk to us about what you are doing today, about Kacy Fleming, about what you're building and what you're building with Fuchsia 10.
Yeah. So I left my corporate career. I'd been in corporate for about 22 years in pharmaceuticals and had many great moments and did a lot of things that really led me to this moment. And I think it's so funny when you kind of look at your career choices if you're not like the super lateral moving person and your career choices are kind of disparate, at the time you're like, what am I doing? Like, how is this gonna look? Like what like people are gonna see this hodgepodge and then all of a sudden you create the thing and all those choices suddenly make sense
Mm.
and seem really lateral. So I think um, I've had a couple passions in my life. Obviously, acting and singing were my first one, and I will always love them, but I don't do them. I love taking care. I love teaching people to take care of themselves. I don't love
Mm.
caring for. I do. I love caring for my partner, my dogs, but like I love watching people run that last mile and cross the finish line, whether they crawled or they, had a hand going across it. Like, I love that. And I have had so many struggles with my health in my
Mm.
life that really became my passion was helping people in a similar place, which really led me to that path of well-being, which is where Kacy Fleming Consulting is. So for a number of years, whether it's Sanofi or Takeda, I did well-being work, and I ended up creating my own role and heading global well-being, which meant I was responsible for 50,000 people, frontline workers, people who were working at desk jobs in 70 different countries, many different languages. And what I saw there was if we create the climate and the right strategies around well-being, but the rest of the organization is not there yet, we're kind of setting up for this mismatch, right? In what people are expecting of a company and what a company can actually deliver.
Yes.
And so I was really motivated to kind of go out on my own and help small to mid-size organizations build cultures around well-being. So rather than building like a being team or well-being solutions or that sort of thing, how do I help these companies that can't afford a headcount, that are maybe they're starting sooner and they have the opportunity to build their culture in this way. So that's kind of one piece. And with that, obviously, I do keynote speaking and facilitating and all of the things that an organizational psychology professional would do. My child is the fuchsia tent, and she is a screaming fuchsia colored, angry, sludgy looking baby at the moment, but she's mine. And she came out of having to go through perimenopause in the workplace, wholly unprepared, despite being a white, fairly affluent woman who spent 22 years in healthcare
Mhm.
and had a parent who was a physician and was still subject to Google search when it came time to go through this experience or, kind of whatever
Yeah.
influencer was sharing on a given day. And I was pissed. I was like, there has to be a better way. Like, we don't usually when we're in this phase, it's not like, oh, you know what? I've got an extra 7 hours a day to research what I need to do for my health, right? Let me please let me spend all day trying to understand the connection between my foot pain, my frozen shoulder, my brain fog, my night sweats, my hot flashes, not sleeping every 20 minutes. Like you're not even rational when you're going through that time. And it's not your fault, it's your hormones.
Mm.
So I was like,
Mm.
how do I, number one, create this thing that aggregates great information from kind of a third party evidence based perspective because of all of my different hats that I wore throughout
Yeah.
my career, with the mission of really providing clarity, simplicity, access, and support for all who need it. And then a community because and I still find this. I haven't quite figured it out with the Fuchsia 10, and hopefully, as this airs, I will be closer. But it is really hard to get women to talk
Mm.
about perimenopause and menopause. We've been taught for so long not to talk about it, that it's
Mhm.
not professional, that it's steeped in ageism and sexism. And that's not even bringing in race because I happen to be privileged and white, but like it's even harder there. And so,
Yeah.
how do we have these conversations? Because I'll tell you what was happening and continues to happen. People come directly to me and I start hearing their stories and I help them in one off, but I know that women sharing their stories with other women in an environment, whether it's live or in community virtually or whatever it is, that's the gift that keeps on giving. And so I think the Fuchsia tent will continue to evolve. I think there's a lot of work to be done in workplace around policy.
Mhm.
I think there's a synergy in the two careers that I have that I am
Mhm.
exploring now to kind of figure out how they coexist and kind of how to get that message clearly out so people know what I'm here to help them do. Um, but I won't give up on the community. I think it's gonna take time and I haven't figured out the secret sauce yet, but it is a beautiful community. We are about 50 strong in just, I don't know, 2.5 months. And there's a great information share within the community, especially from the experts that come and do on-demand webinars. Um, and I'm not just bringing in the people that everybody sees associated with menopause. I'm bringing in voices that have not been heard yet in many cases or that are lesser known because there are so many incredible solutions that women are bringing to the forefront in this
Mm.
space. And there needs to be a place that people can trust. And I'm hoping to be that space.
Hayes, can we just take a beat and celebrate the fact we never do this enough? And this is the gift of our tribes. We want to build, we want to grow with the best of the passion and intention because it's a space we needed and there's such beauty in that. But as you're talking, girl, as your dear friend and someone who loves you so much, I would love for you to take a beat and recognize what you've done in these 2 months. Not only have you had the courage to put it out into the world and not know the end result, which is the scariest fucking thing there is, especially when it is your passion and it is your baby. You have 50 women that have raised their hand and said, this is something I need. And I know the reach is way beyond that. And I would love for you, girl, to just take a micro beat today to recognize that the person that you've gotten to know is you. The person that you're listening to is you. And the person that is guiding this and wherever it goes is you. And it's coming from a place of heart and purpose. And girl, that is such a beautiful fucking thing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. It's hard.
Oh God, it's not easy. This is what I always say. I always like, listen, if this shit was easy, we'd all be having multiple orgasms a day. We'd be rich as fuck and we'd be on yachts, like chipping
Totally.
champagne. Like this shit's hard.
It's
It's
hard.
hard.
It's
Case,
hard. It is.
I would love. Actually, let me put a pin on that before I go to this question. Where can we find the fuchsia tent? Where can we find you so that we can stay engaged with what
Yeah.
you're putting out into the world? Because I got to tell you guys, you can feel Kacy's heart through it, through the screen. And I'm a huge believer that the rooms you stand in online matter just as much as the rooms you stand in offline.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm lucky that I was able to get the domains. Apparently, nobody had come up with a fuchsia tent except for a actual literal fuchsia tent. So it's thefuchsiatent.com. And the funniest thing is everybody spells fuchsia wrong. It's Fuchsia. And so many people look it up and they never think it's spelled that way. So it's Fuchsia, thefuchsiatent.com, or at the fuchsia tent on Instagram, also at the fuchsia tent on Pinterest, and at the fuchsia tent on TikTok. But that is a exploration that this girl has not mastered yet. So
Okay,
if you
good for you,
follow me
girl.
there, good luck with good luck with my TikTok content. It is not worthy of calling myself a TikToker yet.
Hey, you got the shit out there, and that's what
I
matters.
mean, I got on TikTok, but it is not pretty. And then if you are interested kind of in me, my speaking, all of that, it's Kacy Fleming, Kacy, Fleming with one L, one M. Why am I saying one L? Everybody always says two M's. So kacyfleming.com. And then KCA_Fleming on Insta.
Awesome.
Um,
And guys, I'm going to link all that in the show notes so you can
Yeah,
just
because it
click.
was super succinct, guys. I'm all over the place. I'm giving you extra L's. I'm spelling fuchsia for you. Like it's all good. It's
Oh
it's
God,
it's the
here's to
morning.
being fucking human. I got to tell you, somebody said to me the other day, "What do you do?" And I just froze. I just stood there like I don't know. Like
Like words are hard. Words are
words
hard.
words are hard right now. Here's to being fucking human. Case, I want to ask you this because I was thinking about you this morning, knowing that we were going to sit
Yeah,
across the table, and I would love your
yeah,
advice on this. I am having a lot of girlfriends of mine reach out to me right now, and they are being impacted by the layoffs. And I think what a beautiful time to reinvent yourself and hear yourself. And outside of the layoffs, I think there's just so much back to what you talked about as soon as we kicked off about the fear in the world and how you can just
yeah,
absorb everyone else's like loudness and their anxiety becomes your anxiety and all of these things. And
yeah,
what's your advice to someone that is feeling that, whether that is they're being impacted by the layoffs, whether they are living in this state of like fear and chaos right now, and any
yeah,
advice?
yeah. I mean, this is hard fought advice, peeps. But oddly enough, when I was kind of going through, forming these two companies and we just sold
Mm.
our house, my husband had to re-interview for his job, and he is a stability craver. I'm the opposite. And so, his stuff was coming up as my stuff was
Yeah.
coming up. And there's always that confluence in your head of, am I hearing his thoughts? Am I hearing my thoughts? Like what's influencing my decisions? And, you know, look, we have to make a choice. We can live in scarcity mindset
Mm.
forever, feeling like there's only one job or there's only enough for us. And, you know, we can look at each opportunity as life or death, and each person we meet as life or death. And that is going to be the driving force. Or we can decide to live in an abundance mindset, which means that we say, nope, not today, Satan. Like, there are jobs enough. The job that is meant for me is out there.
Mm.
We have to trust, and it's hard. Like, nothing I'm saying is like, oh, yeah, this is easy shit. Like, no, this is the real thing, right? Like, this is awful to have to go through. But we have that choice to go one way or the other,
Mm.
right? And what we give our attention to is what is going to happen for us, right? And so in those times, and I have been part of two layoffs in my career, there's always been something better on the other side. And the first time, yeah, I remember sitting in this restaurant in Arizona called the White Chocolate Grill. I don't even think it's still there anymore. It was like, I don't think it made it. But I had these huge sunglasses on. I was like 27. It was my second like pharma sales job. And something happened with the drug and they let go of all the sales force. And I sat at the table sobbing, like my life had ended, right? Like this was the end. And I got 2 months severance, which is the least that most people get in a major corporate layoff. Now, still, some people get nothing, and that's a whole other thing. But um, I was literally paycheck. I was not even paycheck. I was in debt, right? So this
Yeah.
was like a disaster to me. And I had a new job before the 2 months even came up, and so and that job steered the rest of my career. And so I think because it was in women's health, oddly enough, I think when one door closes, as cheesy as it is,
Mm-hmm.
and cliche as what I'm about to say is, there is something beyond that is meant for you that is better. And I also hate everything happens for a reason. It's so irritating when you're in it and you never want to hear it and you don't want to be the asshole like I am right now saying it, but it is true. there is a reason and there's something that you are being called to,
Mm,
and you may not know what it is today. You may not have any idea when that thing that feels like it rocks your world happens. But I promise you have two choices. You can go towards it, and that thing will reveal itself to you, or you can hide in fear, and you're probably going to get another job, and it's going to be a cycle that repeats itself
mm,
until you learn the damn lesson
mm.
because it's happening for a reason.
Girl, that's a church service moment right there. Case, thank you so much for pulling up a seat to this table today. I gotta tell you, girl, this goes full circle back to our tribes. I did not realize how badly I needed you this morning. I was a little cranky, nothing in specific, just a little cranky. And pulling up a seat with you, girl, gave me the soul food that I didn't even know I needed. That is the gift of you. This is your friend Meg, rally crying you to keep building, keep putting you, keep sharing the gift that is you, keep hearing you because, girl, the ripple impact is so powerful. I love you, and I'm so grateful you're in my orbit.
I love you too, sister. And I think this is a moment where I'd like to just kind of say, like, this is the other thing, right? You're not alone. What
Mm,
you just heard Meg say to me is what guides me in those moments when the champions that are in the front row get real quiet and I start going up to the nosebleeds is is a friend, is somebody
mm,
that sees you in a way that you can't see yourself in that moment. That's
mm,
everything. And I love
mm.
you and I thank you for having me here. And I'm sorry my dogs are barking.
Your doggy is saying, "Good job, mama. Good job."